Welcome to Own Your Zone podcast, where we feature venture capitalists, innovators, angels, and other investors who create positive impact globally. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, I'm JiNan Glasgow George. I'm patent attorney and founder of Neo IP, a law firm helping clients maximize return on investment for patent assets. I'm also host of this show where we feature venture capitalists, innovation-focused private equity companies, and other early-stage investors and entrepreneurs. I have here today John Corcoran of Rise 25. He's done thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs, investors, and CEOs. Today, we flip the script and he's going to interview me.
Awesome. Thank you, JiNan. Thank you for having me here. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about how investors can leverage patent-free zones to de-risk investments in emerging markets. Is a really interesting topic, kind of thinking about patenting from a different angle. So it's probably going to blow your mind a little bit. And we'll get into that in a second. Of course, this episode is brought to you by Neo IP, which helps companies to increase their valuation and protect their business through strategic business planning and intellectual property protection. At Neo IP, they provide corporate and legal services to help companies manage risk, develop portfolios, and monetize their IP assets. Neo IP believes that intellectual property is a valuable business asset with exceptional potential, and they are here to help protect that. To learn more about Neo IP, go to neoipassets.com. And if you'd like to talk more about your business needs, you can also email them at admin@neoipassets.com. All right, so JiNan, let's hop into this topic of this idea of patent-free zones. Let's start there. Let's just define that, and then we'll dive into it a little bit more. But what do you mean by that?
Sure. So maybe I'll start with just saying, when you think about patents, you have to know that they give you the right to keep others out. It's an exclusive right. So in the United States, where most patents are filed of high value throughout the world, we're always thinking about patents block competition. They keep others out of your space, right? They give you the right to exclude. But the other side of the patent system is that it was intended to be an exchange of a disclosure, a description, teaching others how to solve a problem in an inventive way, and to document that in exchange for the exclusive rights. The difference is you have to do it country by country. And so when we look at it in the US, we're always thinking about clearance or freedom to operate so you don't get sued. But that's because of how many patents we have. But if you look outside the US, whether you go to Europe or any emerging market country in Latin America, in Africa, in the East, what we notice is there's a lot of clearance. There are a lot of patents that haven't been filed because most companies don't find those markets valuable enough to invest there. So if the patent's not filed there, it's dedicated to the public. So it's a lot of free R&D, if you will, even though the countries themselves honor patent and enforce them.
There's this idea that, I don't know if idea is the right word to describe it, but many times emerging markets, companies in emerging markets and entire emerging markets can kind of leapfrog ahead because they benefit from what the rest of the world has spent a lot of time, energy, and money developing. You think of like Africa, and like there weren't a lot of landlines in Africa, but it kind of leapfrogged because everyone now has a handheld internet connected device. And so they kind of bypass that whole process. And so you're kind of applying this idea to the world of patents.
Yeah. And it's the trick is it's always been there. It's just that formerly we didn't have access to all the data. But since about late 90s, early 2000, the US Patent Office has made all the data freely available on USPTO.gov. And so anyone can search it. So it's just it comes down to asking the right question and having a focus. And so any company that is active outside of the common markets like the US, even to a certain degree outside of Europe, or China has more filings, but still behind. You think of an emerging market or outside the US, there's likely freedom to operate that you're not exploiting. And what does that mean? It means free R&D. every patent is an inventive solution to a problem. So if you just know what the problem is that you want to solve, you can research through data, patent data, how have other companies solved it? Think about this, John. Use patents as a proxy for R&D investment. It represents the best because you think this is worth having exclusive rights and investing in it, but not every single country.
Yeah.
Maybe it's helpful if I give an example. So we were working with a pharmaceutical company outside of the US in like Middle East, North Africa, a huge company, but they were interested in finding some new solutions, not just doing generics, but finding a solution to diabetes related problems. When we researched the US data, there were over 15,000 solutions. How many were in that specific country in the Middle East? 30.
30 versus 15,000.
This is 15,000. So that difference means all of that's free R&D to be used and deployed, but in that country or outside of the US filings.
And a couple of things. It's like the beauty of that is that it allows new solutions to be layered on top of all that work that's already been done.
Yeah. So instead of that pharma company doing a traditional generics model, which is just kind of copying one formulation, they could look at the best of the solutions and perhaps even combine them in a new way without having to start from scratch or be limited. As long as they're focused on markets outside the US, that works really well. And so we're pretty encouraged that this can help accelerate solutions in emerging market countries. And let's talk about the benefit to investors. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That was the next thing I was going to ask about.
So if you think about it from an investor point of view, there are venture capital, private equity, angel investors who, even companies investing in solutions in each of these countries. I mean, all of the major infrastructure things, everything from consumer products, right on down. So it doesn't necessarily have to be high tech or deep science. But when you think about the investor point of view, this lets them de-risk the technology or science because you're looking at all of the solutions that have already been proven. It's de-risking your capital because now instead of deploying it on potentially solving a problem, you're deploying it on commercialization or just optimizing. And you're really de-risking the business model as well, because by identifying the best technical or scientific solutions, you also find the companies that have deployed them the best, and those business models are also freely available to use. So it really becomes more of a commercialization and bringing the solutions to people.
Yeah.
Making life better on Earth, wherever you are.
Now, this is kind of taking a step backward, but you said the reason why this is there's such a massive potential here is because so many companies, even pharmaceuticals, even large social media companies, are not filing in so many of these different markets. And that's what has created the solution. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, because just like any other asset, intellectual property, patents are assets. And so it's a business choice to invest to create them. And so companies make that choice based upon the markets in which they are active and will get a return on making that investment. And so if the market's not big enough or the company is not active in that market, it's not likely that the company will file patents in those markets. So think about in the United States, today there's over 650,000 patents filed in the US every year. About half of them come from outside the US because companies value the US market. So when we look at other countries, the numbers are very different.
And tell us the story about, you were giving a speech a number of years ago, and you, at the time, were focused more on the African market. So you'd done this research and you were talking about this concept in the African market, but you had someone from another market, from Mexico, who was sitting in the audience. Tell us that story.
Yeah, it was great. So this gentleman, who's a good friend of mine, Luis Marquez, give a shout out to him. He was the Director General of Amex Cap, which is the association of all the venture capital and private equity funds in Mexico. And Luis was in the audience and heard me talking about patent-free zone as a model and the advantage to investors and the ability to bring solutions into the market and the benefit to entrepreneurs to even de-risk their models and create wealth more rapidly. And so after the talk, he approached me and said, why can't we do this in Mexico? Can you come do this in Mexico? And I thought, let me check that out. And at that time, there were about over 500,000 patents being filed in the US every year, but only about 15,000 filed in Mexico. So that difference is the patent-free zone, that gap between what patents exist there and what exists elsewhere. And principally, I compare to US because it's such an active market and traditionally a reliable market of best solutions. So what that meant was, yes, there was a huge opportunity in Mexico. And so I was invited the next year to speak at an annual venture capital investor conference to present the idea and to help to de-risk the investment, as we've just talked about. Pretty exciting, but it is a really counterintuitive way to think about patents. So it gives entrepreneurs and investors outside the US a way to think about the unique value proposition they have because they're outside the US.
Right. Absolutely. And let's give another example. We were talking beforehand about the idea of like a drone technology company that goes to the EO and maybe goes to Spain, and they want to help provide critical asset protection in Spain using drone technology. The tech exists in the US, but the patent doesn't exist in Spain. So talk a little bit about that concept as well as an example.
Yeah, that's a great example. So, it basically provides that the company that wants to deliver that solution in Spain has freedom to operate. They have clearance. So this patent-free zone of not just the solution that they've considered initially, but kind of the best of any company that's active in that area with solutions. Remember, every patent is an inventive solution to a problem. But when you look at them in groups by the companies that own them and by the specific areas of application like critical asset protection, they could augment their existing plans and harvest the best technologies and then deliver solutions in Spain if that's their territory. And then that makes them a more attractive partner or maybe even acquisition candidate for global companies. So it actually creates the opportunity to exit for these companies that are creating the markets where they are. Like, be who you are, where you are, and leverage patent-free zone.
Yeah, such a brilliant idea. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up on maybe for investors or companies that are looking at these emerging markets and how they can leverage this patent data? And you have a software solution too that helps with that.
Yeah, our patent forecast software helps to look at broad areas of opportunity, whether it's UAV or drone technology, whether it's consumer packaging, whether it's even kind of simpler solutions that just relate to medical diagnostics or treatment. Like any problem, you can find a solution with it. And patentforecast.com, we map out a lot of these solutions. But in general, it's just think beyond what you've thought of so far. That's the point of the patent system, is to share ideas so that they are put out in the world and can be improved upon. It's just a new way. Actually, it's the old way. It's how Jefferson set up the patent system, is that this disclosure is a benefit to society. But here, this goes outside the US. It really goes to the globe. And I think it can help to deliver solutions that are well needed, whether it's water treatment or pharmaceuticals or consumer goods, or perhaps, again, food supply protections. Really, any problem that you have, you can find it because now the data is available and searchable. And again, solutions like we have can make it easier to do it. But it's think beyond your idea.
Yeah.
Go beyond.
So exciting. JiNan, where can people go to connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you. So neoipassets.com. So contacting us there through our website. and my personal site, JiNan Glasgow George.com. And please check us out if you're interested in patent-free zones. See how to access patent data at patentforecast.com. Thanks for asking.
Excellent, JiNan. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to the Own Your Zone podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.